The notes today are rates, ratios, and proportions. You may remember some of this from last year. This should be somewhat review on the basic rates, ratios, and proportions, and then we're going to be getting into percent proportions um, next week. But let's talk about ratios, rates, and proportions today. There are three formats in which you can write a ratio, and a ratio is simply comparing one thing to another. Both are the same kind of things. Okay, so you can write a ratio as a fraction, A over B. You can write it using a colon, A colon B, the first item, the second item, and using the word to, A to B when you're comparing. So in a ratio, you're comparing two like items. For example, in this first one, we have Mrs. Banks has 3 dogs, 2 cats, 2 birds, and a fish. Well, these are all animals. So we can compare them using a ratio since they're all animals. In a ratio, and all three forms, you're going to represent these following scenarios. The first one is dogs to cats. 3 dogs, 2 cats. So I'm going to write my three forms. And the first one is dogs, so it has to represent letter A up here. The second one is cats, so it has to represent letter B. So for dogs to cats, it's going to be 3 over 2 for the fraction form, 3 colon 2 for the colon ratio form. And with the word 2, it's going to be 3, 2, 2. Okay, so you go ahead and do fish to birds and also birds to total animals. And for total animals, that's all of them, including the birds. Right? The ratios in all three forms. So ratios compare like items. Now, if we have, if we want to compare things that are not alike, then it's not a ratio, it's called a rate. For example, if we want to compare words and minutes, how many words per minute, that would be a rate. Also, miles per hour, the word per is usually in there, and it represents the division sign or the fraction bar. The word per represents the division sign or the fraction bar when we're making a rate. So 100 words in 2 minutes would be 50 words per minute. And that would be called a unit rate because we've reduced it to 1 minute. There's a 1 in there. So that's a unit rate. A unit is 1 of something. So now in this example, 100 words in 2 minutes, we've simplified it so that we're talking about how many words in 1 minute, in 1 unit. So that's 50 words in 1 minute is a unit rate. Okay? So when the number 1 is involved, it's generally a unit rate. Looking at some common rates that you might recognize from day-to-day life, the number of miles in 1 hour is miles per hour. The number of miles that you can go on 1 gallon is miles per gallon. The number of dollars that you spend on 1 pound of something is the price per pound. And the number of dollars that you might spend or make, actually, in 1 hour is dollars per hour. So this would be salary. Dollars per hour, how much you make in 1 hour of work. And you're representing it with the word per, or you might have the slash sign to represent division, miles divided by hours, miles divided by gallons, dollars divided by pounds, dollars divided by hours. And some of these have even more of an abbreviation like MPH for miles per hour. All right. Now, if we have rates and ratios, we can use proportions to help us solve for the unit rate or the equivalent ratio. And a proportion is an equation stating that 2 ratios or 2 rates are equivalent. You did this last year. Elizabeth ran 24 miles in 3 hours. What was her average speed in miles per hour? Now, miles per hour means miles divided by hours. So when we set up our proportion, we're going to have miles over hours. And remember that when you set up your proportion, you have to have the same labels on top. So I have miles and miles on top, hours and hours on the bottom. My labels have to match. And then what we're going to do here is look at our rate. We're comparing miles to hours. So our initial miles to hours is 24 miles and 3 hours. But what we want to know in miles per hour, that means for 1 hour, okay? Miles per hour also means miles for 1 hour. So our hours here is going to be 1, and we're going to find miles. That'll be X'd. So how many miles did she travel in 1 hour? Well, of course, we're going to solve with our proportion, cross multiply and divide, or cross multiply, and what would you take 3 times to get 24? And that would be 8 here to get 24. Okay, so whatever method you're familiar with solving your proportions, I'll let you go ahead and use as long as you can get the right answer. Personally, I do 24 times 1 divided by 3. And so it's going to be 8 miles. Make sure you get your label on there. Okay. For example 5, your unit price is what's going to start your proportion out. So you're comparing dollars and oranges. Equals dollars and oranges. Okay, so I want you to go ahead and fill in your unit price into the left half of your proportion. And you're finding out how much for a unit price means 1. How much for 1 orange is what you want to know here. All right, finish that one up. Which size bag has the lowest price per pound in number 6? We have 3 different sizes of bags and 3 different prices. We're looking for the price per pound or the price divided by pounds. Okay, so price divided by pounds, or price per pound. And you're going to do the price divided by pounds for each one of these and figure out which one has the lowest unit rate, which one has the lowest price for 1 pound. So you could also set up proportions here where you have dollars over pounds and dollars over pounds. And you're looking for the price for 1 pound here. So you would take these two numbers and fill them into the left half of your proportion and find out what X will be for 1 pound here. That's supposed to be a pound sign. All right. In example 7, I want you to try that one on your own. And number 8. So let's remember that if we want to check to see if fractions are equivalent, or if we want to check what's greater or least, we could cross multiply. The same thing goes for ratios. And ratios, remember, compare 2 of the same things. So if I have 4 to 9 and 5 to 6, I can compare them and see if they're equivalent or not by cross multiplying. 6 times 4 is 24, 9 times 5 is 45. So these are not equivalent. Now, the reason why this works is because if I cross multiply, it's the same as if I were going to make a common denominator using the product of these two numbers. So 9 times 6, okay? So my denominator here for these two numbers would be 54. Okay, so this is like changing this into 54ths and changing this into 54ths and then comparing the numerators. That's why cross multiplying works, and it's important that you remember that. You're not just cross multiplying and magically getting an answer, you're actually making equivalent fractions and comparing the numerators. Okay. Now we're going to talk a little bit about converting using rates and ratios. So looking at this table that we have here, and you can find others of these on the star chart, we can convert from one unit to another. So for example, we can convert from feet to inches or inches to feet. We can convert pounds to ounces using these standard rates and ratios. For example here, all right, so we are going to use these rates up here that are comparing two different items to convert from one unit to another. A unit ratio is one in which the denominator is 1. Okay, also a unit rate is also one where the denominator is 1. Now, these are ratios because they're 3 feet to 1 yard is comparing length. Okay, so that's a ratio. 2,000 pounds to 1 ton is comparing weight, so that's a ratio. So on our rates and ratios up here, if it's all weight or all length or all capacity, then these are ratios within these items up here. Now notice that each one of these in the larger unit has a 1. That's what makes it a unit ratio. There is a 1 in the ratio. Now, converting 20 feet into inches. So what I'm going to do is look at my chart here, and we're comparing feet to inches, so that's 1 foot and 12 inches. So remember that, 1 foot and 12 inches. The first thing I'm going to do is put my labels on, feet and inches, feet on top, feet, inches, inches. It doesn't really matter. You could do inches on the top and feet on the bottom. You'll get the same answer. All right, so now our unit ratio was 1 foot and 12 inches. So on the left, we're going to fill in with that. 1 foot, 12 inches. And then we're going to look at our problem. We're converting 20 feet. So that belongs up here with my feet label. And I don't know how many inches that will be, so that's going to be my x. Okay, now I'm going to do 12 times 20 divided by 1. Okay. Okay, so that's 240 divided by 1. So 20 feet will be 240 inches. All right. Okay, converting pounds into tons, we are going to put pounds and tons. Oops, let me get my pen back. And big T for tons. So I've got my label set up already. Now all I have to do is fill it in. So I'm going to go back to my chart, and I'm doing pounds and tons, which is right here. 1 ton, 2,000 pounds. 1 ton, 2,000 pounds. Well, that's supposed to be 2,000. I want you to go ahead and complete this, converting 8,000 pounds into tons. And then I also want you to try number 3. We're converting cups to ounces. Cups to ounces. All right. You are also going to do number 1 and 2 on the next page. I'm going to help you with number 2 down here. The pork loin roast shown is cut into 10 smaller pork chops. That should be pork chops, not pork chops. Of equal weight. How many ounces does each pork chop weigh? Well, we're given 3 pounds. So we're going to have to convert pounds into ounces. So the first thing we're going to want to do is convert this whole roast into ounces. Okay, and that will be the weight for the entire roast once we've converted. So then we're going to have one more step after that. So pounds to ounces. Pounds to ounces is 1 pound, 16 ounces according to the chart. Okay, so I'm going to do pounds and ounces for my labels. 1 pound is 16 ounces. And then I have a 3 pound roast, so that's going to go here in the ratio. And I don't know how many ounces that will be. Of course, we're going to multiply by 3. So we're going to have 48 ounces in the whole roast. So if there's 48 ounces in the whole roast, then if we cut it into 10 pieces, we're going to divide by 10, and that will be 4.8 ounces per chop. Okay? All right, so I want you to work on this. Also do 3 and 4 here for the unit prices. Remember, you're setting up your ratios and your proportions. And we are going to go through this tomorrow or our next class period and talk some more about it.